I was embarrassed, I was ashamed, and I always felt we were the poor kids, in the neighborhood with the way that I dressed, and never had money to do the things, that I wanted to do, like my friend Mark, who lived in a wealthy neighborhood. It was a kid that I met at the local community center right across the street from my home. And Mark would invite me to his home for dinners on an infrequent basis. And I loved the way that his parents communicated. And I loved, the trips that he took with his family. And I loved that he was always able to keep up with, the nicest clothes. And he had a lot of the nice things that my family just couldn't afford. My mother worked really hard working in a local department store. My father worked really hard as a cab driver. He still has the same mindset, that he had, 45 years ago when I was a young man, 12 years old, whatever the case might be. He still has the same, discussions around money and how much this stuff costs and how much it's going to cost for the light to be on in the house if you're not in the room to turn off the light. He still has the scarcity mentality that there's not enough. I was fortunate that at the age of 19, I met a man that really took everything that I shared with him about my past, and he asked me some questions that nobody ever asked me before. He says, have you ever thought about the fact that you're recreating that story over and over and over again, and you've bought into that story that because of your past, because of your parents, because of the other kids you want this, and because of the way you were raised you didn't want that? He says, have you ever thought that that could be your story to freedom? I said, what do you mean that could be my story to freedom? He says, why don't you take personal responsibility for using the story, using your past as something you don't want for yourself anymore, but become the young man, become the person that it takes to upgrade your knowledge and skills and habits and behaviors and expectations so that you don't keep recreating your parents' story, your friend's story. So write your own story and then create that. And he shifted my thinking, shifted my frame from being a victim of my parents, being a victim of my school or my education, to becoming victorious by controlling what I focused on and the story that I was going to create. So I'd write down a script for health and wealth and relationships and career and business and fun and experiences and charity. And I'd write down a story almost like a Hollywood writer would write down a story that they'd be filming, with Hollywood actors. What are 3 things that you can do today, not tomorrow, not next week? Tomorrow you worry about it then, but for today, what are 3 things that you can do that when you do those, you actually are moving towards the achievement of the goal? And when you make that a daily practice and you get really good at organizing all the different things that there are to do, but then you just choose 3 and make a commitment that you will achieve those 3 things before the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it's making more calls, reading the book you need to read, watching the video you need to watch, doing the plan that you need to plan, whatever it is, you focus on the power of 3 and you make that a daily practice and habit. Looked at the sheet of paper of what I was looking to attract, and you look at the side of who I needed to become, there's almost a perfect match between what I wrote down and who I became. But it all started off with taking responsibility, no blame, no shame, no guilt, no justification, no embarrassment, taking responsibility for my piece of this and getting clear on exactly what I wanted to achieve, because I didn't want to recreate that story. I became something different.